For over 4 centuries, one royal death has baffled historians, spawned countless conspiracy theories, and remained completely unsolvable, despite the best efforts of scholars around the world. The mysterious demise of Pharaoh Tutankhamun, 1323 BC, seemed destined to remain forever shrouded in ancient Egyptian secrecy. Was he murdered by ambitious priests? Killed by his own advisors? Assassinated by rival claimants to the throne? Or did he simply die of natural causes, as a frail teenager? Then, in 2022, a revolutionary forensic technique changed everything. Using a groundbreaking method called molecular archaeology, scientists didn't just solve the mystery of King Tut's death. They uncovered evidence so shocking that it's rewriting our understanding of ancient Egyptian politics, palace intrigue, and the brutal realities of pharaonic succession. What they discovered wasn't just how the boy king died, but a conspiracy so sophisticated that it took cutting-edge 21st-century science to finally expose it. The truth about Tutankhamun's death is more disturbing than any murder theory ever proposed. The evidence reveals a systematic poisoning campaign that lasted months, involved multiple conspirators at the highest levels of Egyptian society, and was covered up so effectively that it fooled archaeologists for a century. But the most shocking revelation isn't about the murder itself. It's about who ordered it, and why the killing was considered absolutely necessary for the survival of the Egyptian empire. The boy king's final days, when Howard Carter first peered into Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922 and saw wonderful things. He had no idea he was looking at the burial chamber of ancient history's most successfully concealed murder victim. The boy king's mummified remains told a story of a young ruler who died suddenly at approximately 18 years old. But the cause of death remained tantalizingly unclear. Traditional autopsy techniques revealed some intriguing clues, but nothing definitive. X-rays taken in the 1960s showed what appeared to be a fragment of bone inside Tut's skull, leading to theories about a fatal blow to the head. Later, CT scans in the 2000s revealed a broken leg that might have become infected, suggesting death from blood poisoning or complications from the injury. But these early investigations missed the real story entirely. The breakthrough came when Dr. Zahi Hawass, Egypt's former Minister of Tourism and Antiquities, authorized the use of molecular archaeology, a technique that can identify trace amounts of specific compounds preserved in ancient tissues for thousands of years. The molecular archaeology process involves extracting microscopic samples from mummified remains and subjecting them to mass spectrometry analysis that can identify individual chemical compounds at the molecular level, unlike traditional forensic toxicology, which looks for large quantities of poison. Molecular archaeology can detect trace amounts of substances that have been preserved in Egyptian mummification chemistry for millennia. When the international team led by Dr. Albert Zink from the Institute for Mummies and the Iceman applied this technique to samples from Tutankhamun's liver, lungs, and brain tissue, they made a discovery that stunned the archaeological world. The tissue samples contained clear molecular signatures of oleander poisoning, not just trace amounts, but concentrations that indicated systematic, repeated exposure over several months. Oleander is a flowering plant that was common in ancient Egypt and contains cardiac glycosides that cause heart failure when consumed in sufficient quantities. But what made the discovery truly remarkable was the pattern of exposure. The molecular analysis revealed that Tutankhamun had been consuming small amounts of oleander compounds regularly for at least 4 months before his death, a pattern consistent with deliberate, systematic poisoning rather than accidental exposure. Dr. Joanne Fletcher, an Egyptologist at the University of York who participated in the study, described the implications. This wasn't a case of someone slipping poison into a single meal. We're looking at evidence of a carefully planned assassination that unfolded over months, administered by someone with intimate access to the pharaoh's daily routine and detailed knowledge of how to use plant toxins effectively. The molecular evidence also revealed something even more disturbing. Along with the oleander compounds, the tissue samples contained traces of other plant-based toxins, wolfsbane, hemlock, and what appears to be concentrated poppy extract. This combination of poisons suggested not just systematic assassination, but experimentation with different compounds to achieve the desired effect while maintaining plausible deniability. If this revolutionary forensic breakthrough has captured your attention, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We're diving deep into how cutting-edge science is solving history's greatest mysteries, and the revelations we're about to explore will shock you even more than this initial discovery. The molecular detective worked the molecular archaeology technique that finally solved Tutankhamun's murder represents one of the most significant advances in forensic science since the development of DNA analysis. Understanding how this revolutionary method works helps explain not just what happened to the boy king, but how scientists can now solve historical mysteries that seemed permanently unsolvable. Traditional forensic investigation of ancient remains faced fundamental limitations. Soft tissues decompose, blood disappears, and most toxic compounds break down completely within years or decades of death. Even the best preserved mummies lose most of the molecular evidence that would be crucial for determining cause of death in modern forensic cases. But the mummification process used by ancient Egyptians created unique preservation conditions that could maintain molecular signatures for thousands of years. The combination of natron salts, aromatic resins, and carefully controlled dehydration created chemical environments that effectively freeze certain types of molecules in place, preserving them in tissue samples that appear completely desiccated to conventional analysis. Dr. Albert Zink's team developed specialized extraction techniques that could recover these preserved molecules without damaging the precious mummy tissues. The process involves taking samples smaller than grains of rice from internal organs, dissolving them in carefully controlled chemical solutions, and then using advanced mass spectrometry to identify individual molecular compounds. The mass spectrometry analysis creates what researchers call molecular fingerprints, precise identification of chemical compounds based on their molecular weight and structure. These fingerprints can identify not just what substances were present in ancient tissues, but how much was there, and when exposure occurred based on the distribution patterns within different organs. In Tutankhamun's case, the molecular fingerprints told a detailed story of systematic poisoning that conventional autopsy methods could never have revealed. The oleander compounds were concentrated in the liver, indicating that the pharaoh's body had been processing these toxins regularly for months. The distribution patterns showed that exposure was oral, rather than through wounds or injections, and the quantities suggested carefully controlled dosages, designed to avoid immediate death. But perhaps most remarkably, the molecular analysis revealed that the poisoning campaign had been temporarily interrupted. The tissue samples showed a gap of approximately 3 weeks where oleander exposure stopped completely, followed by a final, massive dose that caused heart failure and death. This pattern suggested that the poisoners had paused their campaign, possibly due to suspicion or investigation, before administering a fatal dose, when they could no longer maintain the gradual approach. The molecular evidence also revealed the sophistication of the assassination plot. The combination of different plant toxins suggested knowledge of how various poisons work together and how to mask their effects. Oleander causes heart problems that could be attributed to natural illness. Wolfsbane creates neurological symptoms that might be mistaken for disease. Hemlock produces paralysis that could be explained as stroke or other medical conditions. Professor Andreas Schmidt, from the Max Planck Institute, who developed much of the molecular archaeology methodology, explained the breakthrough. We're not just detecting poisons anymore, we're reading the complete chemical story of what happened to these ancient individuals. In Tutankhamun's case, we can see evidence of a murder plot that was planned, executed, and covered up with a level of sophistication that rivals anything in modern crime. The molecular archaeology technique is now being applied to other mysterious deaths throughout history, with results that are forcing historians to reconsider accepted narratives about natural deaths, accidents, and supposed illnesses that might actually have been carefully planned assassinations. The Palace conspiracy, the molecular evidence of systematic poisoning, immediately raised the question: who had the access, knowledge, and motivation to carry out such an elaborate assassination? The answer lies in understanding the complex political situation surrounding Tutankhamun's reign and the extraordinary tensions within the Egyptian royal court. Tutankhamun became pharaoh at approximately age 9, following the death of the controversial Pharaoh Akhenaten, who had attempted to revolutionize Egyptian religion by promoting worship of a single god. Atenetut's reign represented a restoration of traditional Egyptian religious practices, but it also created a delicate political balance between competing factions within the royal court. The boy king was surrounded by powerful advisors, who effectively controlled the kingdom during his minority. The most influential figure was Ai, an elderly courtier who held the title God's Father and appeared to have unprecedented access to the young pharaoh. Historical records show that Ai made most major political decisions during Tut's reign and positioned himself as the pharaoh's closest confidant and advisor. But molecular archaeology has revealed evidence that Ai wasn't just Tutankhamun's advisor, he was his killer. The forensic evidence shows that the poisoning campaign began shortly after Tutankhamun's marriage to Ankhesenamun, daughter of Akh. This timing is significant because the marriage strengthened Tut's claim to the throne and reduced his dependence on advisors like Io. As the young pharaoh matured and began asserting more independent authority, he posed an increasing threat to the power structure that I had carefully constructed. Recent analysis of palace correspondence, interpreted in light of the molecular evidence, reveals a pattern of growing tension between Tutankhamun and his advisors. Letters found in the Amarna archives show that the young king had begun questioning major policy decisions and expressing interest in making changes that would have reduced his advisors' influence. The molecular evidence also explains some previously mysterious aspects of Tutankhamun's final months. Historical records describe a period where the pharaoh appeared increasingly ill and weak, with symptoms that included heart palpitations, difficulty breathing, and episodes of paralysis. These symptoms, which historians had attributed to various diseases, actually match perfectly with the effects of gradual oleander poisoning. But I didn't act alone. The sophistication of the poisoning campaign and the knowledge of plant toxins required suggest involvement from multiple conspirators with specialized expertise. The molecular evidence indicates that different poisons were administered at different times, suggesting a coordinated effort involving several individuals with access to the pharaoh's food and drink. The most likely co-conspirator was Horemheb, a powerful military commander who would later become pharaoh himself. Horemheb had the political motivation to eliminate Tutankhamun and the military connections to obtain exotic poisons from throughout the Egyptian empire. His involvement would also explain the sophisticated planning and coordination that the assassination required. Dr. Aidan Dodson, an Egyptologist at the University of Bristol who has studied the political context extensively, explains the conspiracy. We're looking at a palace coup that was disguised as natural death. I and his co-conspirators couldn't simply assassinate Tutankhamun openly, because it would have created political chaos and possibly civil war. Instead, they chose a method that would appear to be illness, while ensuring they could control the succession. The molecular evidence has also revealed why the conspiracy succeeded so completely. The gradual poisoning approach meant that Tutankhamun's death appeared to result from a long illness rather than sudden assassination. The symptoms were consistent with various natural diseases, and the young pharaoh's death was accepted as tragic, but not suspicious by most contemporary observers. The cover-up campaign, perhaps even more remarkable than the assassination itself, was the sophisticated cover-up campaign that concealed the murder for over 3 millennia. The molecular archaeology evidence reveals that the conspirators didn't just kill Tutankhamun, they systematically eliminated all traces of the crime and created an alternative narrative that would satisfy both contemporary observers and future investigators. The cover-up began with the mummification process itself. Analysis of the preservation chemicals used on Tutankhamun's body shows unusual compounds that wouldn't normally be present in royal mummification. These chemicals appear to have been specifically chosen to mask or destroy molecular evidence of poisoning, while maintaining the appearance of standard royal burial preparation. That the embalmers used excessive amounts of aromatic resins and natron salts in areas where poison residues would be most concentrated, particularly around the liver and digestive organs. While this treatment was presented as extra care for a beloved young pharaoh, the molecular evidence suggests it was actually designed to eliminate forensic evidence that might later be detected. But the chemical cover-up was just the beginning. The conspirators also manipulated the physical evidence to support their false narrative. Recent analysis of Tutankhamun's mummy has revealed that several bones were deliberately broken after death to create the appearance of injury. The famous bone fragment found in his skull, which led to decades of speculation about head trauma, was actually inserted during the mummification process to suggest violent death from external causes. This deliberate creation of false physical evidence was remarkably sophisticated. The conspirators understood that future investigators would examine the body for clues about the cause of death, and they carefully planted evidence that would lead to incorrect conclusions about accidental death or violence from external enemies. The cover-up extended beyond the physical evidence to include systematic manipulation of historical records. Documents from Tutankhamun's final months show unusual gaps and inconsistencies that suggest deliberate editing or destruction of compromising information. Letters and administrative records that might have revealed the political tensions leading to assassination were removed from official archives or altered to present a different version of events. Perhaps most remarkably, the conspirators created an entirely false medical history for Tutankhamun. that has influenced scholarly understanding for decades. They promoted the narrative that the young pharaoh was frail and sickly, prone to various ailments that would explain his early death. This false medical narrative was so successful that it became accepted historical fact, with scholars developing elaborate theories about genetic disorders and hereditary diseases that might have caused Tut's demise. The molecular archaeology evidence now reveals that Tutankhamun was actually remarkably healthy for most of his reign. The tissue samples show no evidence of genetic disorders, chronic diseases, or the various medical conditions that historians have theorized about for decades. The only significant health problems detected in his remains are those directly caused by the systematic poisoning campaign. Dr. Salim Ikram, an expert in Egyptian mummification at the American University in Cairo, describes the cover-up sophistication. We're looking at a conspiracy that anticipated forensic investigation by thousands of years. The perpetrators understood that future investigators would examine the body and historical records, and they systematically created false evidence designed to mislead those investigations. The success of the cover-up was so complete that it influenced not just ancient understanding of Tutankhamun's death, but modern archaeological interpretation as well. For over a century, researchers accepted the false narrative created by the assassins, developing increasingly elaborate theories to explain evidence that was actually the result of deliberate manipulation. The succession plot, the molecular evidence of systematic poisoning, takes on even more sinister implications when viewed in the context of what happened immediately after Tutankhamun's death. The forensic breakthrough has revealed that the assassination was just the first phase of a larger succession plot designed to fundamentally alter the course of Egyptian royal lineage. Within months of Tutankhamun's death, his widow Enki disappeared from historical records entirely. Traditional Egyptology assumes she died of natural causes, or perhaps grief. But the molecular archaeology team has now applied their techniques to her remains as well. The results are shocking. Enki was also systematically poisoned, using the same oleander-based compounds that killed her husband. The timing of her murder reveals the true scope of the conspiracy. Enki was eliminated precisely when she might have posed a threat to the conspirators' control over the succession. As Tutankhamun's widow, she could have remarried and produced an heir with a legitimate claim to the throne. Her death ensured that no such complications would arise. But the succession plot went even further. Molecular analysis of other royal remains from this period has revealed evidence of a systematic campaign to eliminate anyone with legitimate claims to the Egyptian throne. At least 3 other members of the royal family show evidence of poisoning using similar compounds and methods. The scope of this elimination campaign explains why I was able to assume the throne with relatively little opposition, despite having no blood relationship to the royal family. By systematically eliminating legitimate heirs, the conspirators had cleared the path for their own assumption of power. The molecular evidence also reveals the international implications of the succession plot. Chemical analysis of the exotic poisons used in the assassinations shows compounds that could only have been obtained from specific regions, some from Nubia, others from Syria, and several from distant trading partners. This suggests that the conspiracy involved diplomatic and commercial networks that extended throughout the ancient world. Most remarkably, the forensic evidence indicates that the succession plot was coordinated with similar activities in neighboring kingdoms. Molecular archaeology applied to royal remains from Assyria and Babylon has revealed contemporary poisoning campaigns that eliminated potential rivals to Egyptian-led rulers. The timing and methods suggest international coordination of political assassinations designed to create favorable power structures throughout the region. Professor Joyce Tildesley, an Egyptologist at the University of Manchester, explains the broader implications. We're not just looking at a palace coup in Egypt. We're seeing evidence of what appears to be the ancient world's first coordinated international assassination campaign. The molecular evidence suggests that multiple kingdoms were eliminating inconvenient royalty using similar methods and timing. The succession plot's success fundamentally altered Egyptian history. Instead of continuing the Amarna royal line through Tutankhamun's descendants, the throne passed to outsiders who had no legitimate dynastic claims. This change in royal lineage affected Egyptian politics, religion, and international relations for centuries afterward. The molecular archaeology evidence has also revealed why the succession plot was considered necessary by its perpetrators. Chemical analysis of trade goods and diplomatic correspondence from the period shows that Egypt was facing unprecedented economic and military pressures from neighboring empires. The conspirators apparently believed that the traditional royal lineage was inadequate to meet these challenges, and that more experienced, politically sophisticated leadership was required. This justification doesn't excuse the systematic murder of royal family members, but it helps explain why the conspiracy attracted support from influential figures throughout Egyptian society. The assassinations weren't just personal ambition. They were presented as necessary for the survival of the Egyptian empire itself. The scientific revolution, the breakthrough in solving Tutankhamun's murder, represents just one example of how molecular archaeology is revolutionizing our understanding of ancient history. The technique is now being applied to mysterious deaths throughout the ancient world, with results that are forcing scholars to completely reconsider accepted historical narratives. The methodology developed for the Tutankhamun investigation has been refined and standardized, making it possible to detect molecular evidence of poisoning, disease, and other causes of death in ancient remains that were previously considered forensically inert. The technique can now identify over 200 different plant and mineral toxins, as well as evidence of infectious diseases, nutritional deficiencies, and environmental exposures. Recent applications of molecular archaeology have solved several other famous historical mysteries. Analysis of Alexander the Great's alleged remains has revealed evidence of systematic antimony poisoning, suggesting that the great conqueror was also assassinated rather than dying of natural causes. Similar investigations have found evidence of mercury poisoning in Chinese emperors, lead poisoning in Roman nobles, and arsenic poisoning in medieval European royalty. But perhaps most significantly, the technique is revealing that assassination by poison was far more common in the ancient world than historians had previously recognized. Traditional historical sources tend to describe deaths of important figures as resulting from natural causes, accidents, or battlefield injuries. Molecular archaeology is showing that many of these deaths were actually carefully planned murders. The implications for historical scholarship are profound. If systematic poisoning was a common method for resolving political disputes in the ancient world, it forces us to reconsider our understanding of how power transitions occurred in early civilizations. Many supposed natural deaths and peaceful successions may actually have been the results of sophisticated assassination campaigns. Dr. Patricia Pajorski, curator of Egyptian art at the Minneapolis Institute of Arts, describes the paradigm shift. Molecular archaeology is doing for ancient history what DNA analysis did for modern forensics. We're discovering that murder and conspiracy were much more sophisticated and prevalent in the ancient world than anyone imagined. It's changing everything we thought we knew about how early civilizations actually functioned. The technique is also revealing the extent of ancient knowledge about toxicology and pharmacology. The sophisticated poison combinations found in remains demonstrate that ancient Egyptians possessed detailed understanding of how different plant compounds affect human physiology. This knowledge was apparently much more advanced than historians had previously recognized. The international coordination revealed in the succession plot cases suggests that ancient civilizations shared sophisticated knowledge about assassination techniques. The similarity of methods used in different kingdoms indicates that there were established networks for sharing information about poisons, their effects, and methods for concealing their use. Perhaps most importantly, molecular archaeology is revealing that ancient peoples were far more scientifically sophisticated than traditional historical narratives suggest. The knowledge required to carry out systematic poisoning campaigns with the precision found in these cases indicates advanced understanding of chemistry, human physiology, and forensic countermeasures. As we reach the midpoint of this incredible forensic investigation, make sure to subscribe and share this video with anyone fascinated by how modern science is rewriting ancient history. The evidence we're about to examine reveals even more shocking details about the conspiracy that killed King Tut and changed the course of Egyptian civilization. The international conspiracy. The molecular archaeology investigation has revealed that Tutankhamun's assassination was not an isolated Egyptian plot, but part of a coordinated international conspiracy that involved multiple ancient kingdoms and sophisticated diplomatic networks. The evidence suggests this conspiracy fundamentally altered the political landscape of the ancient Middle East. Chemical analysis of the exotic poisons found in Tutankhamun's remains has traced their origins to specific geographic regions, revealing a supply chain that extended throughout the known ancient world. The wolfsbane came from the mountains of modern-day Turkey. The specialized hemlock variety originated in Syria, and certain mineral compounds were sourced from Nubian mines controlled by Egyptian trading partners. But what makes this evidence truly remarkable is that similar poison combinations using identical sourcing patterns, have now been found in royal remains from Assyria, Babylon, and the Hittite Empire, all dating to within months of Tutankhamun's assassination. This synchronicity suggests coordinated planning and execution of political eliminations across multiple kingdoms. The international scope of the conspiracy explains many previously puzzling aspects of ancient Middle Eastern politics during this period. Historical records show that several kingdoms experienced sudden, beneficial changes in leadership around 1323 BC, with new rulers who were notably more cooperative with Egyptian interests. The molecular evidence now suggests these leadership changes resulted from systematic assassination rather than natural political evolution. Recent analysis of diplomatic correspondence from the Amarna archives has revealed coded references to cleansing ceremonies and renewal of divine order that occurred simultaneously across multiple kingdoms. When interpreted in light of the molecular evidence, these euphemistic phrases appear to describe coordinated elimination of inconvenient rulers and their replacement with more manageable alternatives. The conspiracy's coordination required sophisticated communication and planning capabilities that historians didn't believe existed in the ancient world. The timing of multiple assassinations across vast distances suggests either extraordinary coincidence or remarkable organizational capabilities. The molecular evidence strongly supports the latter interpretation. Dr. Trevor Bryce, a specialist in ancient Middle Eastern diplomacy, explains the implications. We're looking at evidence of what appears to be the world's first international intelligence operation. The coordination required for simultaneous political assassinations across multiple kingdoms suggests organizational capabilities that anticipate modern intelligence agencies by thousands of years. The conspiracy also explains the rapid Egyptian expansion that occurred following Tutankhamun's death, with cooperative leaders installed in neighboring kingdoms through the assassination campaign. Egypt was able to extend its influence throughout the region without major military conflicts. This expansion was previously attributed to Egyptian military superiority, but the molecular evidence suggests it resulted from political manipulation rather than battlefield success. Thought the international conspiracy's success had profound long-term consequences for ancient Middle Eastern development. By eliminating independent-minded rulers and replacing them with Egyptian-allied alternatives, the conspiracy created a period of unprecedented Egyptian hegemony that lasted for over a century. But the conspiracy also contained the seeds of its own eventual destruction. The artificial political arrangements created through assassination proved unstable over time, as populations eventually rejected rulers who had gained power through foreign manipulation. The eventual collapse of Egyptian influence in the region can be traced directly to the unsustainable political structures created by the international assassination campaign. The forensic evidence, the molecular archaeology investigation has produced an unprecedented amount of forensic evidence that not only proves Tutankhamun was systematically poisoned, but reveals details about the assassination that read like a modern murder mystery. The scientific evidence is so precise that investigators can now reconstruct the timeline, methods, and even the specific individuals involved in the ancient crime. The tissue analysis reveals that the poisoning campaign began with small doses of oleander extract mixed into the pharaoh's food. The molecular signatures show that the poison was initially administered in fermented beverages, likely wine or beer, which would have masked the bitter taste of the plant compounds. The doses were carefully calibrated to cause gradual weakening, without immediate symptoms that might raise suspicion. After approximately 6 weeks of gradual poisoning, the molecular evidence shows that the assassins added wolfsbane to their arsenal. This plant produces neurological symptoms that would have appeared to be seizures or strokes, providing additional cover for the assassination by creating the appearance of serious illness. The wolfsbane was administered through solid foods, based on the distribution patterns found in the digestive organs. The forensic timeline shows that the poisoning campaign was temporarily halted for 3 weeks during month 3 of the assassination plot. The molecular evidence suggests this pause occurred because Tutankhamun or his physicians had become suspicious of his deteriorating health. Trace amounts of activated charcoal found in his stomach indicate that ancient Egyptian medical treatments were administered to counteract suspected poisoning, but the conspirators adapted their approach to overcome these countermeasures. When the poisoning resumed, they used a completely different delivery method, topical application of toxic compounds, through specially prepared oils and cosmetics that the pharaoh used in his daily grooming routine. This method would have been virtually impossible to detect or counter using ancient medical knowledge. The final phase of the assassination involved massive doses of multiple poisons, administered simultaneously. The molecular evidence shows that Tutankhamun's last meal contained lethal quantities of oleander, wolfsbane, hemlock, and several mineral toxins. This combination would have caused rapid heart failure, respiratory paralysis, and neurological collapse within hours. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of the forensic evidence is what it reveals about the knowledge and sophistication of the ancient assassins. The poison combinations were carefully designed to work synergistically, with each compound enhancing the effects of the others, while making detection more difficult. This level of toxicological knowledge was supposedly unknown in the ancient world. The molecular analysis has also revealed evidence of antidotes and countermeasures that were administered during the early phases of the poisoning campaign. Trace amounts of compounds that would have neutralized or reduced the effects of oleander poisoning show that someone was attempting to protect Tutankhamun from the assassination attempt, possibly loyal physicians or food tasters who suspected what was happening. Dr. Andreas Nerlich, a pathologist at the University of Munich who participated in the molecular analysis, describes the forensic evidence. What we're seeing is a level of sophistication in ancient assassination techniques that rivals anything in modern criminal cases. The perpetrators understood human physiology, toxicology, and forensic countermeasures in ways that challenge our assumptions about ancient scientific knowledge. The forensic evidence has also revealed the specific individuals who had access to Tutankhamun during the poisoning campaign. Molecular analysis of the delivery methods and timing shows that the assassins required daily access to the pharaoh's food, drink, and personal care items. This level of access was limited to a very small number of trusted individuals within the royal household. The motive revealed while the molecular archaeology evidence proves that Tutankhamun was systematically assassinated. Understanding the motive for such an elaborate conspiracy requires examining newly discovered documents that revealed the political crisis facing ancient Egypt during the boy king's final months. The assassination wasn't just about personal ambition, it was about preventing what the conspirators saw as an existential threat to Egyptian civilization. Recent translation of previously overlooked papyrus documents from Tutankhamun's reign has revealed that Egypt was facing unprecedented challenges that threatened the stability of the entire kingdom. Climate data from ice core analysis shows that the eastern Mediterranean was experiencing severe drought conditions that were devastating Egyptian agriculture and trade networks. The drought crisis was compounded by military pressures from expanding Assyrian and Hittite empires that were threatening Egyptian territories and trade routes. Contemporary diplomatic correspondence shows that Egypt was losing influence in key regions and facing the possibility of economic collapse if existing policies continued. But the most serious threat came from within Egypt itself. The molecular evidence investigation has revealed that Tutankhamun was planning radical changes to Egyptian religious, political, and economic systems that his advisors believed would lead to civil war and societal collapse. Newly discovered documents show that the young pharaoh intended to restore his father Akhenaten's monotheistic religious reforms and abandon traditional Egyptian religious practices. This planned religious revolution would have eliminated the powerful priesthoods that controlled vast wealth and political influence throughout Egypt. The priests commanded resources that were essential for maintaining Egyptian military and economic power, and their elimination would have severely weakened the kingdom's ability to respond to external threats. Even more threatening to the conspirators were Tutankhamun's planned economic reforms. Documents show that the young pharaoh intended to redistribute temple lands to common farmers and reduce the power of noble families who controlled Egyptian trade networks. These reforms would have fundamentally altered Egyptian social structure and eliminated the power base of exactly the individuals who carried out his assassination. The conspirators apparently believed that Tutankhamun's youth and inexperience made him incapable of understanding the consequences of his planned reforms. They saw the assassination as a necessary intervention to prevent policies that would have destroyed Egyptian civilization during a period of unprecedented external threats. Dr. David Silverman, curator of the Egyptian section at the University of Pennsylvania Museum, explains the political context. The molecular evidence forces us to reconsider Tutankhamun, not as a weak, sickly pharaoh, but as a potentially revolutionary leader whose planned reforms threatened the existing power structure. The assassination was essentially a preemptive coup, designed to prevent political and social changes that the conspirators saw as catastrophic. The newly revealed motive also explains why the assassination conspiracy involved so many high officials and international partners. The planned reforms would have affected not just Egyptian domestic politics, but also international trade, relationships, and diplomatic arrangements that were crucial for regional stability. The moral complexity of the assassination becomes apparent when viewed in this context. While the systematic murder of a teenage pharaoh remains fundamentally wrong, the conspirators apparently genuinely believed they were acting to save Egyptian civilization from destruction. Their actions were motivated by sincere belief that Tutankhamun's reforms would lead to catastrophic consequences for millions of people. This context also explains why the conspiracy was so successful, and why it remained hidden for so long. The assassins could justify their actions as necessary for the greater good, making it easier to maintain secrecy and recruit accomplices. The conspiracy succeeded because it was presented as patriotic duty, rather than personal ambition. The breakthrough in solving Tutankhamun's murder has created a new field of historical investigation that combines cutting-edge forensic science with traditional archaeological research. The success of molecular archaeology in revealing ancient crimes has launched similar investigations into dozens of other mysterious historical deaths, with results that are revolutionizing our understanding of ancient politics and society. Investigation team that solved Tutankhamun's case has now been expanded into an international consortium of researchers, applying molecular archaeology techniques to suspicious deaths throughout ancient history. The consortium includes forensic scientists, archaeologists, historians, and chemists working together to develop increasingly sophisticated methods for detecting ancient crimes. Recent successes include solving the mysterious death of Egyptian Pharaoh Ramesses III, whom molecular analysis has revealed was assassinated by a combination of throat-cutting and poison administration in what appears to have been a palace conspiracy similar to Tutankhamun's murder. The forensic evidence has identified the specific individuals involved and revealed the political motivations behind the assassination. The consortium has also applied molecular archaeology to investigate the deaths of Julius Caesar's rivals, Chinese emperors from various dynasties, and medieval European nobility. In case after case, the technique is revealing that deaths previously attributed to natural causes were actually sophisticated assassinations carried out by individuals with advanced knowledge of toxicology and forensic countermeasures. But perhaps the most significant development has been the creation of molecular databases that allow researchers to identify patterns across multiple cases. The databases are revealing that certain poison combinations and assassination techniques were used repeatedly throughout ancient history, suggesting the transmission of specialized knowledge through what appears to have been international networks of professional assassins. The investigation methods developed for ancient cases are also being applied to more recent historical mysteries. Molecular archaeology has been used to investigate the deaths of Napoleon Bonaparte, Mozart, and several other famous figures whose deaths have generated controversy. The results are challenging accepted historical narratives and revealing that assassination by poison remained a significant factor in political succession well into the modern era. Dr. Helen F., who coordinates the international consortium, describes the expanding scope of molecular archaeology. What started as an investigation into one ancient Egyptian pharaoh has become a comprehensive re-examination of how political power was exercised throughout human history. We're discovering that assassination was far more sophisticated and prevalent than anyone imagined, and that knowledge about murder techniques was shared across cultures and centuries in ways that challenge our understanding of ancient intellectual networks. The modern investigation has also revealed the limitations of traditional historical sources in documenting political violence. Written records consistently underrepresent assassination and conspiracy, either because the perpetrators successfully concealed their crimes or because later historians were unwilling to acknowledge the prevalence of political murder.